I wanted to say good morning and thank you for attending and welcome you to panel 2, which is education's response to the coronavirus pandemic in the U.S.-Mexico border region, lessons learned. I'm Mike Sabbath, Associate Vice President at Northern Arizona University and CEO for NAU's Yuma campus. My co-facilitator is Dr. Linda Elliott Nelson, who serves as the Director of Strategic Partnerships, Vinculación at Arizona Western College. She was formerly the Vice President of Learning Services at the college. She's been a longtime friend of NAU Yuma's, and we worked together on many occasions. As the title of the panel suggests, COVID-19 has impacted the United States and Mexico border region severely, posing significant challenges for student learning and teaching in our educational systems and for the health of our communities on both sides of the U.S.-Mexico border. This panel explores the dimensions of this crisis for education, how schools have responded, and what needs to be done going forward to address the consequences of COVID-19 for our educational systems. We have a most distinguished panel of speakers from both sides of the border. All of them have been involved in one way or another with addressing issues and problems that were presented by the pandemic. We hope we can all learn from their experiences and knowledge about what seemed to work and what didn't seem to work. So we want to look at it from both sides and how we might best deal with circumstances like this in the years ahead. Prior to hearing from our panelists, I want to let Dr. Elliott Nelson have an opportunity to welcome you to our panel and to review any logistics she thinks I've overlooked at this point.
Muy buenos días y bienvenidos al panel sobre la respuesta de educación a la pandemia del coronavirus en nuestra megaregión de los Estados Unidos y México. Tenemos a unos distinguidos panelistas que van a hablar sobre su área de experiencia con esta respuesta a la pandemia. Si prefieren oír las presentaciones en español, va a aparecer un botón abajo de la pantalla cuando llegue la intérprete, donde ustedes pueden cambiar al canal en español si prefieren oír las presentaciones en español. Unos de nuestros expositores van a hablar en inglés, otros van a hablar en español. Los expositores van a hablar por 15 a 20 minutos y después de todas las presentaciones va a haber como 10 o 15 minutos para hacer preguntas. Si tienen preguntas también pueden escribir sus preguntas en el chat, donde podemos ver las preguntas que vamos a hacer al final de la presentación. Después vamos a tener un resumen de lo que dijeron nuestros expositores y también vamos a regresar a la sesión primaria o principal al final. Thank you, Mike.
Okay. And don't forget, I want to remind everyone, there is an interpretation button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. So make use of it if need be, depending on the language of the presenter. Our first panel speaker is Yuma County Superintendent of Schools, Thomas Tyree. Superintendent Tyree has served in the public education area for 50 years, starting as a teacher, head basketball coach, and an administrator in school districts in Yuma and Mesa, Arizona. In August of 2003, he was appointed Yuma County Superintendent of Schools and was subsequently elected to that position for 5 consecutive 4-year terms. During his career, Superintendent Tyree has served in a variety of capacities with numerous public and educational organizations, including as a board member of the Arizona State Board of Education, to which he was appointed by Governor Jan Brewer in 2010. He served 5 years on the board, with 2 of those years being president. He has also served as president of the State County Superintendents Association, trustee of Yuma Regional Medical Center, Chair of Western Arizona Council of Governments, Board Member and Executive Officer of the Arizona Risk Retention Trust Board, Board Member and Vice President of the Arizona Business Education Coalition, President of the Arizona School Personnel Administrators Association, member of Arizona Western College Foundation Board, and he was a founding member of Yuma Education Advocacy Council. Importantly, Superintendent Tyree has played an important leadership role in education's response to the COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on Yuma County education. Welcome, Superintendent Tyree.
Thank you, Dr. Sabbath. It's my pleasure to be with everyone this morning. Appreciate the nice introduction, and it's a real pleasure for me. I think to kind of discuss where we are now and where we've been with respect to the pandemic. I have to tell you that once I started to prepare for this presentation, it really turned out to be I think a great exercise for me, simply because I needed to kind of go back and really reflect over the last 18 months or so. And it was interesting for me to go back and look at the beginning of what turned out to be quite an event in not only in our area locally in the state of Arizona, but across the country, of course, and the world itself. I think one of the interesting things about it is that it has been 18 months, but which is not necessarily a long time, but it certainly seems like it's been a long time as we were thrust into the events that it created. So I think probably one of the things that I would say to begin with was that as we took a look, or as we take a look at get a little feedback through noise. Okay.
Yeah, please mute your mic while the speaker is presenting. Thank you.
So anyway, in taking a look at where we've been and the impact it's had, especially on education, first of all, I would say that the events themselves, the pandemic, were thrust upon us very, very quickly. And I think what I found myself saying many times is that there's an old saying that we were literally building the plane while we were trying to fly it. And so we were moving very, very quickly in trying to adjust to the pandemic itself, and once again what it was thrusting upon education. The other thing I would do is I think I would sort of describe, first of all, the pandemic, at least in terms of what it meant to us educationally, in two phases. If you go back about 18 months ago, we were at right about the beginning of the second semester in our school year when it first began. I think at that particular time, although it started to hit pretty dramatically, I think everyone believed that by the end of the school year and into the summer, that as we would begin the following school year, that that we would be to a point where it would be behind us, and that obviously turned out not to be the case. And so what happened was that at the beginning of this last school year, the 2021 school year, the pandemic started to peak again, and now it would appear, hopefully and thankfully, that we're seeing that it is starting to, that we're starting to be past it, and so that's a good thing. So in looking at the beginning, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by, I guess, looking in the rear view mirror about how we got to where we are today, and what were the events and what was taking place at the time when the first pandemic began. So the environment that we found ourselves in, first of all, was that when the pandemic first hit, there was really a lot of contradictory science regarding people's theories about how the virus began, how it spread, what was its impact on different age groups, especially, of course, those that were working our schools, our teachers and staff members, and of course, very importantly, our students themselves. It was interesting at the time as I would watch news accounts and news shows from different parts of the country, nationally televised types of things, that one expert would come on, somebody that was very credentialed, somebody that was from a very prestigious university or was doing research there, and would tell us what was going on, what their theories were. And then someone would come on right after them that was as equally credentialed from an equally prestigious university. Somebody had a prestigious background, and they would tell you something entirely different. So it was very difficult, if you will, to follow the science as we were being advised to do all the time. All of that was exacerbated by the fact that the United States also found itself right in the middle of a national political election. And so that really, of course, hyped everything up and made a lot of what was going on a lot more challenging as we were trying to figure out what to do. So people were generally very frightened by the pandemic. They didn't know once again, what had caused it, what spread it, and at that particular point in time, we didn't even have a cure. And finally, when our health agencies, our doctors, our epidemiologists, and others, when they did provide us opinions or advisories, sometimes again they're very contradictory, they always framed the information that they provide us in the form of what they called advisories, which or guidance, which was probably the term that was used most often, which was simply meant that they were giving you this advice, but in the end, the task ultimately fell upon school leaders and their governing boards to really figure out what to do. So as you can imagine, it was a very difficult time. People were trying to figure out what to do in a very short amount of time. Very impactful emotionally, created a real emotional burden for a lot of people. And that also extended to the governing board members themselves, the elected officials that oversee our schools in Arizona. And those meetings that they held, which were generally pretty harmonious and with people working together, became very contentious at the time. And a lot of times, depending on where you fell politically, you had a certain view in terms of the pandemic and what the response of the school district should be. And in fact, it was during that time that we actually saw some number of governing board members resigning their positions as governing board members simply because they did not want to be placed into the position of having to make these decisions that many times were very impactful, but also very, very contentious, especially politically. So then with that being said, is kind of where we were or how we got to where we were at that particular time. Then the question is, okay, so what was our response as education leaders? So I would say that our response was that as educational leaders, especially in Yuma, we did what we do best, which is to collaborate and work together. And so I was asked as a leader of our group to quickly convene a meeting of our school superintendents in Yuma County, in which we asked questions of each other and shared our concerns and thoughts about where we were and what our response was going to be, especially in terms of trying to provide an environment that, first of all, was safe for our students and for our employees, but also was one where we could continue to provide sound instruction for our students. One of the things that we did, first of all, in coming together, was also try to determine who should be sitting at the table with us. And I think one of the very smart moves or things that we did that was really helpful to our group was that the person who is the director for county health services in Yuma County, Ms. Diana Gomez, became a very active part of our group, and she began to attend very regularly the meetings that we had at that time, which, by the way, also then began the time where we started to do things in terms of meeting virtually, as we're doing today. So Diana became a regular attender at that meeting, and I can tell you that I communicated with her almost on a daily basis, many days, on multiple times. And I think one of the things that became a responsibility of mine was to become an aggregator of data information because of my unique role as county superintendent and having access not only to the county resources, but also resources and information from all around the country. And of course, one of the things I was doing, like a lot of other people, was trying to do a lot of reading, taking a look at the research to see what was going on in the world, in our country, and in our state, to help develop some sort of a response. It was, during that time, I accumulated or gathered a lot of data. So I could tell you that as the pandemic was thrust upon us, I had data that related especially to the impact of the pandemic on age groups, so everywhere from preschool through the 12th grade or the senior year in high school. I knew that information not only by age, but by grade and even by zip code. And so we watched that very closely. And as time went along, in addition to bringing Ms. Gomez on our team with us as we are combating and looking at this as to how we might respond to it appropriately, we then added other people, other scientists and experts along the way to our team to help us navigate this very difficult time. So what did we do? What did we come up with initially? What were the kinds of things that we did to respond? First of all, one of the things that was developed during that time, the science was that people needed to be spaced 6 feet apart. That was what became the social distancing metric that we needed to follow. And that was guidance that was provided by the Center for Disease Control, the CDC, for us. And the result of that was that there was no way that schools could have all of their, even if it had been safe otherwise, there was no way that our students could be placed in our schools, in our classrooms, in our cafeterias, on our buses to transport students to and from school. There's no way that you could do that and maintain a 6-foot spacing for everyone. So what we saw was the beginning then of some instructional strategies that would allow us to educate in the beginning some of our students in person while others were educated at home. And that became what was known as a hybrid type of a model. Eventually, as the pandemic itself became more critical, we eventually got to the point at the end of that first year that every student actually was being educated virtually. Our schools became closed to direct instruction for all students. All learning was done via Zoom or through computers. And then, of course, what we were trying to find out then or figure out was what were the logistics that we needed to put in place to do that most effectively, and also what it was that we needed to do that also would amount to effective instruction. So in addition to trying to figure out what instructional models would work for us, then the other thing was this: how did we how did we maintain a safe environment? So it was during that time that staffs were mobilized, and we were constantly cleaning our rooms and buildings in our schools. We had people constantly cleaning throughout the school day versus doing it at the end of the day. And it wasn't unusual for me to go to a school to visit and to walk into an office and be almost overpowered by the smell of bleach and disinfectant in offices as I walked in. In addition to that, we saw other social practices being developed in terms of how students moved around the school. We had students stay in classes for longer periods of time as opposed to moving around. And we also had restrictions put on any sort of extracurricular types of activities. So our sole function almost became that of trying to provide core instruction to our students in the beginning in a hybrid type of a manner or model, and then eventually totally virtual during the way, trying to figure that out as well. And we did things like not only keep them in their classes, but if they did move around, we even gave them direction in terms of how they moved around. We staggered school bells and passing period times. A student might go from one class to another if they were in schools, and also restricted, once again, how they even went through hallways. So once again, the other real impact, we'll talk about the more of this a little bit more in a minute, but the real impact was what that did to our students socially as well. So then the other thing was that, as I said, we were trying to figure out instructional models that would be effective with students, those hybrid types of models, and until we got to the point where schools began to close completely. And then, as I said, we went through 2 phases. Then it was about that time during the second phase, which is about this last school year, right after the major holidays, where Arizona became the hot spot of the United States, and then Yuma, Arizona was the hot spot of the state. So we had a high infection rate. And then gradually what we've seen, of course, is that infection rate started to go down, and on around March the 15th, most schools actually returned then to full direct student instruction, and that was prompted by the governor of the state of Arizona's directive that we were all to return back to school for in-person instruction. I would say that one of the things that really put Yuma, Arizona, and our schools in a position to be able to bring schools back, our students back on full instruction, direct instruction, was that we were able to create a plan with the assistance of our county health officials, as well as our state legislators and our school leaders, to actually come up with a very efficient plan to get all of our school teachers and staff members in our schools vaccinated for their first and second vaccinations in a very efficient and timely manner. And so by the time that the governor told Arizona schools that they should return and that our students should return, our teachers and staff, administrators had all been vaccinated, and were a much better position in terms of their personal safety and health because they had all been vaccinated. The other thing that happened
President Tyree?
Yes, sir.
You have 1 more minute.
Okay, 1 more minute. Okay, so just very quickly then, what's been the effect of all this? First of all, there's been a learning loss, and I think we're going to find out what the results of that are going to be next fall when we get the results of our standardized tests back. There's been a real social impact on our students. We're seeing depression, higher amount of drug use, those types of things. It's had a great social impact on them. And finally, there's going to be an impact on us financially, because Arizona is funded by the number of students that we have in our schools. And what we know is that during this time, that the traditional public schools in Arizona have lost about 55,000 students. We know that about 16 to 18,000 of those students have migrated to charter schools, which means that we still don't know where about 37,000 of those students are. And then finally, going forward, I think probably that's the big question, is where are they, and will they be coming back to our schools? And then the other thing is that what the lasting impact on instruction is going to be, as we have gone to the point we do use technology along with direct instruction more. So Dr. Sabbath, sorry I didn't had to rush there at the end, but I think that gives a pretty good picture of kind of what's happened in Yuma County educationally and what our response has been.
Yes, yes. Thank you much, Superintendent Tyree. Great comments. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Nelson now to introduce Dr. Hado.
Muchas gracias, Dr. Sabbath. El doctor Juan Gabriel Aro Beltrán es egresado de la licenciatura en Administración y Especialidades en Desarrollo Gerencial por parte del Instituto Tecnológico de Ensenada. Realizó sus estudios de posgrado en maestrías en Ciencias Educativas por parte del Instituto de Investigación y Desarrollo Educativo en la UABC, especialidad Tecnología Educativa, maestría en Educación y doctorado en Gerencia y Política Educativa por parte del Centro de Estudios Universitarios de Baja California. Del 1991 al 2001 trabajó en el área de recursos humanos en el Cebatis 140, así como diferentes áreas del 2001 a 2006 en la administración escolar de CETI 74, auditor y supervisor de escuelas incorporadas del 2006 al 2008, jefe del área de recursos materiales de 2008 a 2011. También fue jefe de servicios administrativos del 2011 a 2014, jefe de vinculación con el sector productivo del 2014, jefe del área de vinculación de la DGT de 2014 a 2019 y presidente estatal de la Academia de Investigación y Desarrollo Tecnológico. Actualmente cuenta con más de 29 años de experiencia en educación medio superior y 12 en superior, universidad y posgrados. En su experiencia profesional ha participado como docente en diversos institutos educativos como UNID, CIGOBC, UNIDEP, Xochicalco, Centro Universitario de Tijuana en licenciatura y posgrados de maestría y doctorado, así como maestro titular de CETI 74 en diferentes carreras en la modalidad de escolarizado y sistema autoplaneado. Actualmente es director de Impulso a la Gestión de Calidad de la Secretaría de Educación en Baja California, donde además ha colaborado en proyectos educativos en los que destaca la realización de la elaboración de los planes y cursos en línea en diferentes institutos educativos, experto en el diseño de plataformas educativas como DGT Planea, DGT Vinculación, Budgeti, plataforma CETI 74, plataforma COBC, Campus Rosarito, Campus Mexicali, Campus La Paz, plataforma CETI 95, Tutitlán, Estado de México, plataforma de extensión universitaria Xochicalco, plataforma preparatoria Xochicalco, Comas Loreto y 2 programas de radio educativos en línea llamado Radio Panteras y Expresión Educativa, asesor de tesis de maestrías y doctorados como el Instituto Nacional de Administración Pública. Además, tiene su haber algunas publicaciones en revistas de algunas universidades, ha elaborado certificaciones, diplomados, cursos internacionales, nacionales, estatales y locales en educación media superior y superior, ponencias y congresos nacionales e internacionales. Ha obtenido reconocimientos locales, estatales, nacionales e internacionales como docente investigador. Como siempre, continúe contribuyendo al fortalecimiento de las instituciones educativas en la práctica docente a través de una enseñanza en aprendizaje con calidad educativa. Doctor Juan Gabriel Aro Beltrán.
Muchas gracias, doctora Nelson. Muchas gracias a todos. Muy buenos días. Les mando un cordial saludo desde la ciudad que capturó el sol, desde la bella Mexicali, Baja California, México. Si me permiten, les voy a compartir una presentación. Me dicen si ya se mira para poder empezar a trabajar. ¿Ya se mira? Sí, gracias. Gracias a todos. Primeramente, es un gusto saludarlos y, por supuesto, comentarles que la maestra María de Jesús Sánchez Ávila, secretaria de Educación de Baja California, les manda un cordial saludo. Así también nuestro subsecretario de Educación Media Superior, Superior e Investigación, el maestro Javier González Monroy, les manda también un cordial saludo y el mayor de los éxitos en estas intervenciones. También gracias a las autoridades de la Universidad de Arizona por la invitación a este panel de respuestas de la educación a la pandemia del coronavirus COVID-19 en la región fronteriza Estados Unidos, México. Lecciones aprendidas. Como dijera nuestro amigo y doctor CHER, que al final de cuentas son aprendizajes, ¿no? Por ahí decían que nos hemos subido a un avión cuando lo estábamos arreglando y precisamente voy a hablar lo que estábamos haciendo aquí en Baja California, el antes, el durante y el después, es decir, también nos estamos preparando para precisamente lo que sigue. No sin antes citar a Núñez, ¿sí? Que me permite, si me permiten citarlo, dice, no podemos permitirnos el lujo de volver a las aulas y dejar que la rutina borre todas las necesidades, ideas, reflexiones detentadas y aparecidas en estos días de confinamiento y cambio. Es por ello, y cambio impuesto, es por ello que para nosotros es bien importante tomar en cuenta y definitivamente el habilitar esas competencias y trabajar con esas áreas de oportunidad que estamos visualizando día a día. Aquí sabemos, yo nada más quise para poner en un preámbulo, que ha sido una de las mayores amenazas en nuestra vida para la educación global. Es decir, no nomás sufrió Estados Unidos y México, sino más de 6.600 millones de niños y jóvenes que no asisten a la escuela en 161 países. Esto lo publica el director de Global Education. Es por ello que aquí en México, también en marzo del 2020, pues interrumpieron sus actividades más de 254,000 planteles y alrededor de 30 millones de alumnos de educación básica y educación media superior. Y esto pues a través de Mejoredu y de Conaedu. También es importante decirles lo que se ha hecho, ¿sí? Dentro de los trabajos. Cuando empezó todo esto de la pandemia, pues empezamos a movilizarnos y es decir, empezamos a trabajar sobre los procesos de enseñanza y aprendizaje en tiempos de contingencia. Por ello se crean talleres de formación docentes, ¿sí? Itinerarios para el reencuentro de la enseñanza y el aprendizaje en la contingencia, en educación media superior, y se miran y se visualizan dos puntos. En la primera se revisaron definitivamente a través de 4 aristas las complejidades de la práctica docente a distancia. Es decir, pues para todos me queda muy bien la reflexión que decían, arreglando el avión, se suben al avión. Y es por ello, definitivamente sabemos que todo esto lleva una complejidad de generación de transiciones que transitan en la educación entre maestros y alumnos. Es decir, sabemos que tenemos generaciones de maestros tradicionalistas, baby boomers, maestros generación X, maestros generación net, alumnos o maestros todavía creo ya tenemos generación millennials con alumnos centennials. Es por ello esta transición, estas culturas, estos procesos que nos debemos ir a la par y trabajar acorde a las nuevas necesidades, a los nuevos modelos educativos para definitivamente también considerar con objetividad el desarrollar de procesos de enseñanza y aprendizaje más efectivos. Es decir, no podemos seguir haciendo lo mismo, por eso cito a Núñez desde el principio, porque nosotros debemos de trabajar, ¿sí? con las nuevas acciones y los nuevos procesos que nos conllevan a este mundo actual. Es por ello que nosotros, dentro de esto se hacen unas encuestas sobre las experiencias en las comunidades de educación básica durante la contingencia COVID-19 en el ciclo escolar 2019-2020. Es decir, este ejercicio participan cerca de 194,000 docentes, estudiantes, directivos, madres, padres y tutores de educación básica. ¿Por qué lo pongo? Porque precisamente dentro de este horizonte nos marcaban esas 4 aristas donde definitivamente los procesos que haríamos en educación a distancia a corto plazo y a mediano plazo, desde el acceso y permanencia, desde la calidad de los aprendizajes, desde el bienestar educativo y desde la gobernanza del propio sistema. Para ello, nosotros aquí en la Secretaría de Educación de Baja California, desde un principio, cuando se viene esto de marzo del COVID, donde ya se empiezan a hacer el cierre de las escuelas, nosotros, a través con todas las autoridades educativas o todos los actores de la educación, llámese gobierno estatal, sector salud, sector educativo, sector empresarial, unimos fuerzas para crear campañas de concientización y información masiva en acciones preventivas para la mitigación del contagio COVID. Es decir, se empezaron a hacer protocolos, igual como lo decía el maestro Tairé, de 1.5 metros de distancia, se empezaron a rotar el personal dentro de las áreas directivas, empezaron a hacer muchas formas de trabajar de una manera diferente y a distancia. También comentar que se le da un seguimiento con los protocolos de contingencia en la fase 2, tanto en instituciones públicas como privadas. Aquí un esfuerzo continuo entre las 2 instituciones amalgamadas por la Secretaría de Educación en Baja California. Hubo campañas definitivamente de actividades en contingencia con la Subsecretaría de Media Superior e Investigación, como las estrategias de difusión de Ponte Trucha, Quédate en Casa, y esa fue con Educación Superior, y empresarios con la Secretaría de Educación. Es decir, se hizo una campaña muy fuerte y muy masiva de cada uno de los grandes empresarios de aquí de esta región. También programas como psicomedicina, precisamente atendiendo todos esos aspectos psicoemocionales que se suscitaban dentro de este encierro, en la cual teníamos líneas telefónicas que le denominábamos líneas educativas, los cuales a través de psicólogos con universidades como UABC, Xochicalco, universidades públicas y privadas, se pusieron de acuerdo para poder trabajar con aquellos casos que podrían operar este tipo de situaciones psicosocioemocionales. También es importante mencionar que se crea por primera vez la plataforma MUDEMS 4.0 desde la Subsecretaría de Educación Media Superior e Investigación, en la cual se desarrolla, se diseña y se implementan estrategias didácticas a través de diseños instruccionales, modelos pedagógicos en los cuales se les provee a todos los maestros de todo el nivel medio superior de los 8 subsistemas con los que contamos aquí en Baja California para que puedan operar con una plataforma libre y gratuita, con programas open source, con licencias GNU, para que pudieran hacer sus acciones de trabajo totalmente en línea. También pensando en los grupos vulnerables aquí en México, y Baja California no es la excepción, también se da el programa de Quédate en Casa con actividades escolares en las cuales ustedes saben que uno de los accesos para las comunidades más vulnerables pues es la comunicación de la televisión abierta. Es donde se ponen de acuerdo los programas televisivos en los cuales también funcionaron, así como muchos manuales y libros que se repartieron por el Estado. Se siguen impulsando estrategias de acciones a través de la media superior con programas digitales, favoreciendo la enseñanza-aprendizaje junto con los acuerdos de colaboración con el Centro Nacional de Actualización Docente. Es decir, se da un programa donde se refuerzan a través también vía México, en los cuales se capacitan a los maestros de Baja California. Es por ello, también se crea por primera vez el programa estatal de lectura de educación media superior en línea, en las cuales se ponían lecturas muy divertidas, muy agradables, hecha por expertos en esta área, como la doctora Rosario Mariñez, en las cuales se impulsaron este tipo de estrategias para la habilidad y la comprensión lectora. También es importante mencionar que se crean Space Bootcamp, en este caso que eran todos conectados a través de CONALEP 2021, en el cual se crean programas, o se crea este bootcamp especializados en STEAM, lo que es ciencia, tecnología y matemáticas, administración y matemáticas. Y con esto se impulsan definitivamente bastantes estrategias, son muchas más, también como el acceso a plataformas como ustedes las conocen, Microsoft Teams, el cual también dan una capacidad de 10,000 becas, ¿sí? A través del uso de Microsoft Teams, y conocer, en las cuales se dan a las universidades de educación superior para los alumnos con cinco certificaciones conocer. También es importante mencionar que la Secretaría de Educación abre dentro de su propio portal el uso de Google for Education, las cuales aplican desde webinars. En educación básica se abren definitivamente los programas, los planes los suben en línea, las lecciones las suben en línea, los libros de texto gratuitos los ponen en línea, exponen las aulas virtuales, ponen enciclopedias o bibliotecas virtuales, se pone una serie de recursos para educación básica, media superior y superior, con programas open source o de código abierto que ya mencioné, se crean webinars, se certifican, y si mal no recuerdo, creo fuimos el primer estado, fuimos el número 1 de toda la República de trabajar la mayor parte también con Google for Education. Es por ello, eso fue lo que hicimos antes de la pandemia. Recordemos también que se han hecho los grandes esfuerzos por gobierno federal y gobierno estatal para el regreso seguro a la escuela. Es decir, aquí en Baja California ya vacunaron a todo el personal docente, administrativo, de apoyo y asistencia a la educación, así como para escuelas e instituciones públicas como privadas. Ese ha sido un gran esfuerzo, donde precisamente el día de hoy en la mañanera parece que esperan un regreso a la escuela a partir del 15 de junio. Se está visualizando, vuelvo a decirlo, se está implementando, porque eso va a ser acorde a cada estado, ¿sí? A cada estado, donde cada uno de ellos, cada estado va a priorizar junto con la Secretaría de Salud, ¿sí? Y la Secretaría de Educación para este regreso seguro a la escuela, en la cual definitivamente por iniciativas sabemos que debemos de garantizar la vacunación, la capacitación y las condiciones seguras para todo el personal docente. Por ahí les dicen las famosas 3 Bs, ¿no? Vacunado, voluntario ¿y cuál es la otra?
Verde.
Y verde, perfecto, eso, ya ven, si fuimos a la escuela. Vacunado, voluntario y verde. Y precisamente este regreso seguro a la escuela, recuerden que en México y en Baja California se crea el famoso semáforo, donde el rojo, pues sabemos que es de alto riesgo, ¿sí? Donde no podemos hacerlo. El amarillo es el que se pone pues con rezago, más vulnerabilidad, así como el trabajo a distancia de los alumnos. Aquí seguimos trabajando, por ahí lo decíamos, con métodos o modelos híbridos, es decir, sabemos que estamos viviendo una transición en tecnologías, lo decíamos, por esa mediación digital, pero también esa generación de usuarios, de maestros y alumnos dentro de este tipo de plataformas. Pero sí seguimos trabajando con modelos híbridos. Por eso el regreso seguro a escuelas, así lo decíamos ahorita, es verde, vacunado y voluntario. Se deben de poner de acuerdo, es bien importante, porque ahí manejaron unos lineamientos y unas guías de operación, así como unos protocolos de seguridad para poder ser y hacer el regreso seguro a clases. Es decir, los protocolos va a depender de cada plantel, de cada situación, de cada uno donde están, pero sí siguiendo los lineamientos y las guías de operación que ofrece la Secretaría de Salud y la Secretaría de Educación. Es por ello, este regreso seguro seguramente serán en procesos escalonados, donde vamos a permitir en semáforo amarillo la apertura del laboratorio, seguir continuando o de manera simultánea con las famosas aulas virtuales en los modelos híbridos.
Sí, con su permiso, doctor Aro, 1 minuto más.
Gracias, amable. Entonces, pues durante sabemos que es coordinación de educación, sector salud, los 3 filtros de responsabilidad, porque hacemos un trabajo continuo rápidamente con lo que son los comités de padres de familia, los directivos, los maestros y todo, a través de estas 5 intervenciones o 5 momentos claves y las 9 intervenciones, que son los preparativos, los días previos, el primer día previo a la clase, así como la primera semana de clases y el resto del ciclo escolar, siguiendo cada una de las intervenciones. Es por ello que la Secretaría de Educación en Baja California seguimos juntos, comprometidos con la comunidad educativa, porque escuchamos de manera activa y de manera horizontal, porque trabajamos en equipo, porque todos somos uno, porque pensamos y creemos en la creatividad, porque somos resilientes a la capacidad de aprendizaje, para tener un pensamiento crítico, porque somos comprometidos, flexibles, tenemos una mentalidad de crecimiento para habilitar esas habilidades digitales y tener un aprendizaje constante e independiente, siempre fomentando las famosas soft skills. Y es por ello, y cito rápidamente a un músico argentino, se llama Gustavo Cerati, nomás les digo gracias totales.
Muchísimas gracias, Dr. Aro. I will move this over to Dr. Michael Saba.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments, Dr. Hotto. I don't think I'll ever be able to forget the phrase, "We were on the plane while we were working on it." An apt characterization. Our next speaker is Efrain Silva, who is the Dean of Economic and Workforce Development at Imperial Valley College in Imperial County, California. Dean Silva has an MBA from Northern Arizona University, a good choice, and a BA in Public Administration from San Diego State University, and an AA from Imperial Valley College. He served in numerous management positions over the last 30 years and served on many local boards, including the board of the Imperial Valley Economic Development Corporation, the Imperial County Workforce Development Board, and the Imperial Valley Regional Occupational Program Foundation, for which he was a founding member. Dean Silva has also served in several elected positions, including trustee with the El Centro Elementary School Board and trustee with the Central High School District Board. Dean Silva also served 3 terms on the El Centro City Council, including serving as mayor of El Centro in 2011, 2015, and 2020. Among other things, he received the Oathley Award in 2014, which is the highest civilian award by the government of Mexico to citizens living abroad whose life and work had a positive impact on Mexicans living abroad. He was a farm worker and an immigrant who came to this country at the age of 14 and completed most of his college education at night while learning English and working full-time jobs. It's important to note that Dean Silva was the mayor of El Centro during much of the first year of the pandemic, while also an educational administrator at Imperial Valley College. Welcome, Dean Silva.
Sorry about that. Dr. Saba, thank you so much for the introduction. It's really good to see friends of mine on screen. I look forward to today, hopefully very soon, that we can come back and see each other in person. También di nota que hay amigos de Secati, Omar, todos ustedes, los extraños, espero vernos dentro de poco tiempo. It is always also humbling for me to hear people talk about my background, because you know, I made a very important decision in my life many years ago, and that was that I was going to learn to speak English, and B, that I was going to get an education. And even though it took me a long time, because as I indicated, almost all of my formal education was done at night while working in the daytime. So I'm very humble and I've been able to join such a distinguished group of individuals. Yes, as a mayor of El Centro, I was right in the middle of the pandemic, and I lost friends, good friends, to COVID. I was also personally impacted by the devastation in our community, both the social, the health impact, and also the economic impact on our communities. Imperial County was also among the hardest hit counties in the nation with our COVID infections and the number of deaths and the impacts in our hospitals. And there were some days that it was really scary to see our hospitals impacted to the level that they were. Things are looking better. We're still one of the last remaining counties in the state that's still classified as orange tier. We have not reached the levels yet to go down to the next level. The governor is going to be announcing some modifications on June 15. Actually, the plan for June 15 is for the state to go back to normal times without those tier systems anymore. So I look forward to that, but we also maintain a responsibility to our community to make sure that we continue to provide a safe environment for all of us. I also want to say that as mayor of El Centro, during the height of the pandemic, it was clear to me that communication and news were not getting through to our Spanish-speaking community. So with the support of the council, I'm very proud to say that the El Centro City Council and me as the mayor, to my knowledge, was the first council who managed to hold council meetings in Spanish, because I felt that it was important for people to hear, not through a translator, not through words, but actually hear the reports on COVID and the mitigation and what was happening in their own native language. So I'm very proud to be able to do that. So, however, today I'm talking to you about as the Dean of Economic and Workforce Development, and I have a short presentation that I'd like to tell you. So first of all, let me, there you go. So many of you may not be familiar with Imperial Valley College, so I'm just gonna give you a little bit of a taste of our demographics. In 1920, our head count was 11,000 plus students. Individual students that attended Imperial Valley College at one point or another in the last year. About 55% of our student population are women, 43% are males. 65% of our students are under the age of 24. 90% of our students are Hispanic, and 50% of our students declare themselves as transfer students. So I know in Mexico, the system of transferring is not common, but these are basically students who come to IDC, want to do their first 2 years of college, of university work, and then they transfer on to university after their junior year. Our top majors are general science, psychology, administration of justice, but we also have very robust programs in basic skills, such as ESL. We have a very robust career education program that I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, and also a very robust community education program that provides our community with life learning opportunities for themselves and their family. So COVID, you know, the governor, we knew that things were getting pretty bad, and the governor closed the state practically on March 13th. So on March 13th, literally overnight, we sent our students home. We had to transition in a very quick way to virtual learning. That created a significant challenge, not just for our students, but also for faculty. Because in California, for a class to be officially approved as an online class, there's a very rigorous review process of not just the coursework, but the faculty, to make sure that the faculty and the coursework has the rigor necessary that is expected of a college level class. And we are not authorized to offer online classes without approval from the Chancellor's office. But given the pandemic, the Chancellor's office also granted special waivers for colleges to be able to continue to do online instruction. Online instruction, as we define it, varied in so many ways. We have a management system called Canvas, and some of our students, our faculty use Canvas. Other people use Zoom. Other people use YouTube. I mean, it was all over the map. There was no coordination. There was no single definition of what that was. So that became very, very chaotic. We also found out that there's some classes that in spite of COVID and in spite of us wanting to offer online classes, we could not, right? There's other regulatory agencies that said, no, you have to teach these things in person. So our nursing program, our police academy program, our EMT program, we had to bring those students back on campus and offer the required face-to-face instruction. We obviously did it in a safe way. We found large rooms, we separated people, we screened people in, we had the face mask. If there happened to be a reported infection at the time, there was remedial steps to make sure that we offer both our faculty and our students the safe environment that they deserve. Obviously, we also recognize that there was some disciplines that you just cannot teach online. You can't. You can't teach welding online. You can't teach construction online. But we struggled. We managed that through the end of the spring semester, and then in fall, I'll talk a little bit about how we managed to do fall in a much different way. Also, the impact of students was something that the chancellor's office allowed for what they call excuse withdrawals, right? So typically, students only have a short window of time to withdraw from their classes. Under COVID, that window was expanded all the way to the end of the semester. And if a student had a failing grade, given the challenges of COVID and the technology and all these things, we were given a special withdrawal code that categorized that as an excuse withdrawal. And if you had excuse withdrawal, there was no impact on your financial aid status. There was no impact on your academic status. It was basically a forgiven course given the scope of COVID. Also, because this happened so quickly, literally overnight, we also knew that we had to provide a support structure for both our faculty and our students. So we immediately developed some online classes that our instructors could observe and watch and participate to improve their ability to teach online. And we also provided them faculty mentors. So these are individual faculty members who were certified to teach online, and they became mentors, and they were accessible to our faculty at any time of the day and be able to help them answer questions, provide suggestions, and so on. We also needed to provide a support structure for our students that were sent home overnight. We continue to provide childcare services on campus for our students. So even if the students were home, they had the option still to bring their children to our campus in a safe environment, go home and do their classes online. That proved to be very, very useful for our students. We provided any student that asked, we provided them with Chromebooks, and we provided them with hotspots to be able to access the internet. We did find out that Chromebook did not support some of the applications that were necessary for the courses. So we had to go back and re-strategize and find other equipment that made it work. We also found out that the hotspot, the internet accessibility, did not work well in all of the areas of the county. So there are some students that had challenges with being able to access their online instruction. We held numerous food drives on campus. We ended up serving over 5,000 families. We also had special funding that was dedicated for students that face eviction, that face food insecurity, that may have faced homelessness, and provide them with vouchers and provide them with venues for them to be able to fix that in their lives and allow them to stay in school. We also created a support network for mental health services, not just for students, but for our faculty and our staff as well. So obviously the impact was not just for Imperial County, as it was across the nation. You see that the National Clearinghouse identified about a 9.5% of enrollment for community colleges. We are here at Imperial Valley College saw a higher drop than that. We lost about 14% of our students in fall 20 compared to fall 19, and many of those students that we lost were primarily males, first-time students, students of color, and students older than 20 years of age. So these numbers that I have in front of you are numbers specific to Imperial Valley. And you can see how from fall 19 to fall 20, we lost 24% of our male student population, only 10% of our female population. First-time students, where we have lost 40% of our first-time students from fall 2019 to fall 20, about 20% of our female students, we lost them. Also, if you see on the graph in terms of the first-time students and how we lost them, you can see clearly that the older the students, the more likely they were to drop out. It could be because the younger students were perhaps more accustomed to the technology of online learning, and for some of our older students, they may have had some challenges in terms of their abilities, both the infrastructure to be able to learn online, or maybe just the online mechanism that does not work well for everybody. So we also surveyed our students and find out what challenges do you have. So you can see that 39% of our students had no experience in online. So to transition them to an online module where they have no experience became extremely, extremely difficult. 21% did not have laptop or did not have internet access. 43% of them could not do their work because they needed to attend to family members. 34% had personal conflicts. 30% just kind of lost the motivation. And then 43% found that the home environment was difficult to learn in. So luckily we got past, the spring semester. It was incredibly challenging, as I indicated. So for fall, we made some changes. We did bring some students back on campus. In fall 20, we split primarily on the career education courses. Again, you can't learn welding or construction or some of these disciplines online. You just can't. So we moved them into phases. So we had a phase in which where the COVID numbers were lower, we brought them on campus. We kind of emphasized and focused more on the hands-on activities. And then when winter arrived and COVID began to climb up again, we sent them home for online instruction. But they were able to get about 10 weeks on campus with actual laboratory experiments and exercises that they had to do. And then they would transition online. In spring, we reversed that. In spring, they first stayed home, and then they're here now, completing their hands-on activities. For fall 21, about 20% of our classes are going to be offered on campus, again, in a safe environment with the distancing and the face masking. And it obviously depends on what prevalent guidelines we have from the state when we start classes back in August. So whatever it is, if face masks are still required, that's what we'll require. We cannot require students to be vaccinated. That's an official legal recommendation from the Chancellor's office, is that we don't have the authority to require that. We encourage that. We have set up vaccination clinics on campus for both faculty and staff, but we cannot. And interestingly enough, what I found is that because all of the existing vaccines only have temporary approval or from FDA, we cannot require that. Once FDA grants full approval of vaccines, we may be in a better position to require from students and from staff that they be vaccinated. But if you keep up with the news, the formal full approval is at best case scenario about 6 months away. So that is not going to help us for fall semester. For fall 21, again, we are going to be having all of the hands-on activities are going to be handled on campus, and all of the lecture type exercises will be handled through a virtual instruction. We're also encouraging our faculty, and we're providing faculty to use something that's called HiFlex. HiFlex is an instructional modality that allows students to learn real-time with a professor speaking to them either in person or through an online environment. It's not new technology. and COVID is beginning to get more popular. And so we're trying it out in fall semester, see how it works. We have purchased the necessary equipment and technology to do that. If it's new, we'll see how it works, but hopefully if that works well, we probably continue to do that, to use HyFlex even past the COVID pandemic. As I indicated, IBC also was a COVID vaccination site. And over the span of a few months, I don't know, I forget the number, but thousands of individuals were able to get vaccinated here on campus. Our superintendent president, Dr. Marta Garcia, has done an incredible job in terms of reaching out to our community, making sure that herself and us are accessible to all of our stakeholders, our community, our students, our faculty, our staff, and hear from them and be able to answer questions from them directly. We had a student community forum led by Dr. Garcia, and what I found really interesting is that we still have a very split community, right? There's some people, there's some community members, there's some students who do not want to come back on campus, even now, either the lower of the vaccination, the increased vaccination and the lower of the infection rates. They still are not ready to come back on campus. And we also heard from other students who want to come back on campus that online learning did not work for them, right? For some of the challenges that I indicated earlier. But I think a reality of things for all of us is that COVID is here to stay. Even after COVID is hopefully a bad memory for all of us, the impacts of that will continue to will remain. I think that as students and faculty becomes more familiar and more accustomed to online instruction, I think that we're going to see more online instruction than we were had it not been for COVID. And also us for as far as providing services, there's Zoom links to a lot of our departments. So anybody that wants to talk to our admissions and record department, for example, they go into our website, they click on a link, and it gets them to speak to an actual help face-to-face through Zoom. And I think that's
1 minute, Dean Silva.
Thank you. That's likely to continue. I'm actually done. So lessons learned. COVID has permanently changed our lives. Academic institutions are going to rely more and more on online modalities. Many of our students lack the technology infrastructure to learn effectively online. And also most career education courses cannot be taught online. Otherwise, we'll see the example in our homes that I have next to you. So this is an example of graduates of a construction online class. And also, it's going to take a coordinated effort. It's going to take a lot of work, a lot of strategic planning to make sure that all of those students that we lost because of COVID are able to come back to us and are able to resume their lives in a way that they want to, in a way that is going to be good for them. Thank you, Dr. Chavez. Thank you, Dr. Nelson.
Thank you very much, Dean Silva. Really appreciate your participation today. I'm now going to turn over the session to Dr. Linda Elliott Nelson.
Gracias, Dr. Sabas. La licenciada Yara Amparo López López es especialista en migración internacional por el Colegio de la Frontera Norte. Es licenciada en educación primaria por la Normal Fronteriza Campus Tijuana, Baja California. Se ha desempeñado como consultor académico durante los últimos 10 años en diversos niveles educativos. Tiene experiencia de 15 años como coordinadora de programas relacionados con migración y educación. Ha impartido múltiples cursos, talleres y conferencias en el área educativa. Cuenta con experiencia de más de 8 años en docencia en los niveles de licenciatura y posgrado. Ha publicado artículos en la Universidad de Valencia, España y Universidad de San Diego, California. Es coautora del libro Migración, Educación y Sociedad, Visiones y Experiencias desde la Frontera. Por la Red Iberoamericana de Pedagogía, miembro de Asociación de California for Bilingual Education. Tiene el curso, el diplomado en la Universidad de California en San Diego sobre U.S. Political Institutions and U.S.-Mexico Relations Program. Actualmente sirve como coordinador en el Sistema Educativo Estatal, Programa Binacional de Educación Migrante en el estado de Baja California. Y que atiendo a más de 50,000 alumnos que son nacidos en el extranjero y se encuentran inscritos en escuelas públicas. Licenciada Yara Amparo López López.
Muchas gracias, doctora Linda. Es un placer estar con todos ustedes el día de hoy. Gracias por la invitación. Es un gusto poder compartir lo que desde la Secretaría de Educación Básica, atendiendo a menores de hasta el K-9, pudiéramos trabajar en conjunto. Voy a compartir mi pantalla, por favor. ¿Se puede ver bien? Ok, bueno, voy a empezar a hablarles un poco de lo que es el Programa Binacional de Educación Migrante, que es similar a MigrantNet en lo que trabajan en Estados Unidos. Entonces, el programa surge con la intención de poder atender a la población entre México y Estados Unidos que migran, que están en etapa de educación. Y ahora nosotros lo que hemos enfrentado en los últimos 15 años en Baja California es el retorno o la llegada de estudiantes provenientes de Estados Unidos. Entonces, ahorita uno de los puntos más importantes para nosotros es que estos estudiantes que se encuentran en tránsito entre México y Estados Unidos puedan ellos ingresar a la educación, tanto en educación básica como en los programas elementales, como en educación media superior, que es lo que representa el doctor Aro de Baja California, que sería nosotros preparatoria o para ustedes high school. Entonces, este programa trata de ser como el vínculo para estos estudiantes que se encuentran en un contexto de migración. El reto que regularmente estos estudiantes enfrentan es el desconocimiento de las escuelas, tanto en el funcionamiento de la escuela como las ubicaciones de las escuelas. Para eso el programa tiene 5 ejes temáticos donde apoyan a los estudiantes para que ellos puedan ingresar. El primer eje temático es la información y la difusión de que el programa existe y los podemos ayudar. El segundo, que es para nosotros el de mayor importancia, es el acceso a las escuelas, que aquí es donde los estudiantes se enfrentan el primer reto de cómo poder acceder a la educación llegando a un diferente país. Después vamos a hablar de la preparación de los maestros que tenemos que tener para que estos maestros se entiendan y sean sensibles al proceso que estos estudiantes están viviendo entre dinámicas escolares internacionales totalmente diferentes. Después vamos a trabajar con un programa de apoyo educativo y cultural para los estudiantes que están en tránsito, donde les damos a conocer cuáles son las diferencias entre trabajar o estudiar en Estados Unidos, ahora en Centroamérica, en los países del Círculo Norte y México, y principalmente en la frontera. ¿Cómo se va a desarrollar este estudiante? ¿Cómo va a transformar del idioma inglés al idioma español? ¿Cómo va a poder él manejar diferentes procesos culturales en el tiempo que se adapta a una nueva escuela sin caer en la asimilación, que es lo que regularmente sucede cuando nosotros nos cambiamos de un país y de un sistema educativo? Nos asimilamos a una cultura ya establecida, asimilamos un idioma, pero aquí lo que queremos con estos estudiantes es que ellos mantengan su propia identidad y crean una identidad, desarrollen una identidad binacional. ¿Ok? Y al final tenemos la evaluación y el seguimiento. Esto es lo que regularmente funciona en el programa cuando estamos en una condición sin pandemia. El primer punto sería la ubicación del menor en una escuela. Después vamos a hablar cómo el departamento de records o el departamento de control escolar hacen una validación de los estudios para poder nivelar al estudio en el mismo nivel. Y después entra el PROVEM a atender a un estudiante o en un grupo de apoyo con una asesoría psicopedagógica. Y al final mantenemos un seguimiento si el estudiante se mantuvo en la escuela, siguió avanzando o volvió a migrar. Entonces, ¿qué es lo que enfrentamos ahora nosotros en COVID? ¿Cómo enfrentamos esta situación si nosotros no somos una escuela propiamente donde el alumno regresa? Nosotros somos un puente para que el estudiante llegue de otro país y se inserte en la otra escuela del país donde él está llegando. Entonces, ¿qué es lo que enfrentamos entre México y Estados Unidos, principalmente la región fronteriza? Y aquí estoy hablando un poquito de los datos que tenemos en California, que es la mayoría de los niños que recibimos. Sabemos que también están llegando un flujo interesante entre Arizona y Sonora, que están trabajando mucho este trabajo binacional. Entonces, podemos hablar de los 6.2 millones de estudiantes que California identifica en el grado de K-12 contra los 700,000 que identifica Baja California en el grado de K-9. Hablábamos aquí hasta el 9th grade, ¿ok? Y tenemos 2.6 millones de estudiantes que vienen de otros países o que hablan otro idioma, que el inglés no es su primera lengua. Y nosotros los identificamos de nacimiento. Entonces, Baja California identifica a 47,590 estudiantes, que es el 8% de toda la población educativa en edad escolar básica, que su nacimiento es estadounidense. Esto significa que va a haber un movimiento migratorio en algún momento del trayecto formativo de este estudiante. El 96% de estos alumnos, de los 47,500, son nacidos en Estados Unidos. El 60% de ellos se ubica en escuelas públicas, no en escuelas privadas como regularmente es la creencia. Entonces, quiere decir que nuestros sistemas de educación entre Estados Unidos y México tienen que estar relacionados para poder tener este flujo migratorio entre los estudiantes. Porque nosotros les llamamos los estudiantes que compartimos en un periodo de tiempo, están aquí, en otro periodo de tiempo están en Estados Unidos. El incremento del uso del idioma inglés tiene que ser un punto muy importante para Baja California, porque los alumnos es el único medio que tienen para comunicarse cuando su formación ha sido la mayor cantidad de años en Estados Unidos. Entonces, tenemos que buscar hacer propuestas para desarrollar el idioma inglés y mejorar la forma de que el estudiante pueda comunicarse, ya sea estando en México o estando en Estados Unidos. Ahora quiero hablarles un poco acerca de lo que viven estos estudiantes y lo que viven los maestros en un proceso de relación binacional donde los vuelven vulnerables. Y el primer punto que vamos a hablar aquí es que estos niños regularmente son invisibles y son invisibles tanto en Estados Unidos como en México. Y a veces no nos damos cuenta que el estudiante es un estudiante que viene de fuera hasta que escuchamos esa expresión en el idioma cuando un alumno que su primera lengua es el inglés y no domina del todo el español y está pensando en su cabeza cómo decir la palabra en español y la primera expresión que él emite es muchas veces esa expresión es la que nos da la pauta para decir, oh, este niño no habla español. El español no es su primera lengua, es el inglés. Entonces, a partir de ahí se vuelve visible en la escuela. ¿Qué tenemos que hacer para que esta invisibilidad deje de estar presente? Pues capacitar a toda la estructura educativa tanto en Baja California como en Estados Unidos, ¿no? Reconocer los conocimientos previos de los estudiantes, saber que los intercambios de maestros entre Baja California, en este caso nuestra cercanía que se está dando con la Universidad de Arizona y que esperemos que crezca, es poder nosotros saber qué aprendieron los estudiantes mientras estaban en las escuelas de Estados Unidos y qué van a aprender cuando están acá. ¿Cuáles serían los prejuicios nacionalistas que tenemos en ambos países, ¿no? Las evaluaciones atípicas, repetición en muchos casos y a veces lo más triste que es el abandono escolar. Al final tendremos nosotros el constante dilema entre los dos idiomas, que la única forma de poder trabajar con este dilema es tener programas de educación bilingüe en ambos lados para permitir una transición de lenguaje más sencilla. Y al final vamos a saber que estos chicos van a seguir moviéndose. Víctor Zúñiga nos refiere que ahora hay una migración, una nueva circulación entre México y Estados Unidos, porque el retorno de estos estudiantes que nosotros estamos recibiendo son niños estadounidenses, pero que son de ascendencia mexicana y que tienen entonces derecho a la doble nacionalidad. Esto significa entonces que estos niños ya no van a estar imposibilitados de transitar entre ambos sistemas. Esto va a ser muy probable que se desarrolle, que quizá en México inicien su educación básica, en Estados Unidos lleven su educación media superior, quizá en México regresen unos años para universidad, quizá concluyan en Estados Unidos la universidad y a fin de cuentas la fuerza laboral, ¿dónde se desarrolla? Esto nos lleva a ciudadanos de ambos mundos y que debemos de prepararnos para poder tener nosotros esta visión. Y llega COVID. ¿Qué pasa entonces durante la situación de COVID? ¿Cómo enfrentamos nosotros una situación que regularmente lo que nosotros pretendemos es ayudar al estudiante que está llegando? Entonces, tuvimos que cambiar la relación de trabajo de forma binacional, hacerla de forma a distancia, así como lo estamos haciendo hoy. Poder capacitar a nuestros maestros en programas bilingües, en capacitación en línea. Trabajar entonces con la escuela, tenemos una sola escuela pública en Baja California que está desarrollando un programa bilingüe, tal como está desarrollado en CABE, con la California for Bilingual Education. Suspendimos el sello de biliteracidad y el sello de Biliteracy Seal, donde le permite al estudiante moverse entre los dos países con un certificado del idioma de español e inglés. Y lo suspendimos porque el examen o el test tiene que ser presencial. Después trabajamos en fortalecer la colaboración con el Departamento de Educación en San Diego, con una idea muy importante que fue para nosotros ver cómo estos estudiantes que están en tránsito pudieran tener una educación en línea sin necesidad de estar presentes en Estados Unidos, pero con validez en Estados Unidos y validez en México. Entonces, en la parte de educación básica está ya desarrollado, está trabajando cómo va a funcionar. En la parte de educación media superior, estamos ahorita en espera de la firma de un MOU con colaboración entre el Departamento de Educación y el Departamento de Educación en California. Esto fue muy importante para nosotros porque permite esta permeabilidad de estudiantes de un lado y del otro lado de la frontera. Y al final, incrementó nuestro registro de atención de estudiantes centroamericanos, donde identificar a más de 500 estudiantes que están llegando a nuestro estado y que los estamos ubicando en escuelas que están trabajando ahora en línea, ¿no? Este es el comité binacional que nosotros desarrollamos junto con el Departamento de Educación de San Diego, primordialmente, que es donde encontramos la mayor cantidad de nuestros estudiantes, para poder colaborar en conjunto y apoyar a los niños migrantes en la crisis del COVID-19. El objetivo de este comité binacional definitivamente es apoyar a los estudiantes en ambos lados de la frontera y tener acceso a la educación. Entonces, seguimos trabajando en esta propuesta. Ahorita queremos comentarles que ya tenemos una escuela desarrollada, un programa, mejor dicho, desarrollado en San Diego, donde los estudiantes que nosotros estamos recibiendo y que estamos identificando que son alumnos que llegan y que habían estudiado en Estados Unidos, pueden inscribirse y pueden estar trabajando en línea. Vamos a tener un espacio en Tijuana donde ellos pueden ir a acceder a los estudios en línea sin necesidad de cruzar a Estados Unidos mientras esté ahorita la crisis de pandemia. Cuando ya se abran los programas y regresemos a la normalidad, pues el estudiante decidirá si regresa ya de forma presencial, pero si no, este sería un programa híbrido que se hizo en conjunto con la Secretaría de Educación en Baja California y el Departamento de Educación en San Diego. Entonces, los retos que nosotros enfrentamos en COVID, lo más importante fue poder trabajar de forma a distancia. Desarrollamos con la Universidad Autónoma de Baja California unos materiales donde los podemos trabajar en línea con los chicos que ahora identificamos en centros de atención o albergues o que están en casa y que no tienen acceso total a la tecnología, y estamos trabajando estos cuadernillos de trabajo para niños de Centroamérica, para niños de Estados Unidos en retorno. Y lo más interesante es que tenemos que reconocer que Baja California no estaba listo para trabajar todo el sistema a distancia. Así como otros países no lo están, hemos enfrentado y hemos tenido que utilizar estrategias tan diversas como trabajar por WhatsApp, donde el padre de familia por WhatsApp envía la tarea del estudiante y el maestro está conectado con él y en 10 minutos te voy a explicar lo que tienes que hacer porque el padre de familia tiene que usar el teléfono. O no tienen todos una laptop o una notebook para poder trabajar a distancia. Entonces, todas las estrategias que hemos tenido nosotros que realizar para poder atender esta dinámica de estudiantes que no están propiamente en la escuela y que tenemos que darles el acceso a la escuela y conectarlos con los directores y con los maestros para que ellos puedan seguir su proceso educativo, ha sido un gran reto, pero afortunadamente hemos podido mantener esta relación de trabajo entre ambos países para poder seguir apoyando a nuestros estudiantes. Entonces, les dejo aquí mis datos de contacto. Podemos seguir colaborando, podemos trabajar directamente también con Arizona para ver cómo está la situación de estos niños que están en el entorno y ver cómo los apoyamos desde acá. Muchas gracias.
Gracias, Yara. I will now turn this back over to Dr. Sabbath.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Lorena Zendejas, who is the campus administrator for the Regional Center for Border Health College of Health Careers. Lorena promotes and oversees a fast-tracked educational institution with headquarters in Somerton, Arizona, and provides allied healthcare, accredited vocational certificate programs in Yuma, La Paz, and Mojave counties. Lorena received her BS in education from Northern Arizona University and her Master's of Education in School Leadership. Prior to joining the Regional Center for Border Health, Lorena was an educator for 10 years in Somerton and Yuma area schools. She is currently an elected official serving her third term on the Somerton School District Governing Board. Welcome, Lorena.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sabbath, and I appreciate this great invitation. Muy buenos días a todos. Gracias por la invitación de estar aquí. As we all have been discussing and listening this morning, you know, the COVID pandemic shook many, if not all, educational institutions to its core. Both sides of the border and throughout the entire world, we face so many problems and issues regarding education. As educational leaders, we needed to adapt and develop innovative ways to serve our students and our staff in our healthcare community. A little background of our college: we are under the umbrella of Regional Center for Border Health. We are licensed by the Arizona Private Post Education Board. were also licensed by the Arizona State Board of Nursing, the Arizona State Board of Medical Examiners of Nursing Care, and we are also accredited by the Accrediting Bureau of Health Education Schools. I've been here for 3 years as the campus administrator. As a nation and the state was trying to find ways to control the spread of the virus, we were hit with an increased need of people in the healthcare field. And so the president and CEO, Amanda Aguirre, our staff and I, we met to develop a plan in order for us to continue our education programs here in our college. We are a small college, and we encompass not only Yuma County, but Mojave and La Paz. Our goal was not to stop instruction, but to continually and effectively provide these programs for our healthcare field. We found that many of our partners and our collaborators in Yuma County were needing these newly graduated healthcare students to fill those positions, as we see that the COVID pandemic was coming in strong. A lot of their staff was either getting sick, many were resigning, and so they leaned on us to help them provide those graduates for the workforce. Not only were we facing that huge health crisis, but the educational system was also being greatly affected. Many schools turned to virtual learning platforms to ensure the safety of their students and their staff. However, in our college, the virtual learning was not a quick option for us to encounter. We needed to work with the state boards because, as my colleague mentioned in Imperial Valley, the state boards or some accrediting bureaus did not allow, or was not, there was not a possibility for our students to do all online. Because of our lab skills that these students needed to master, we needed to continue to provide a safe learning environment for our students, so we remained open. Even though that the fear was within our students and our staff, we made sure that we provided the sufficient PPEs, even though we did face the lack of PPE throughout our county. It was very difficult for us to purchase PPEs. It was very difficult to find it. We spoke to so many distributors in order for us to be able to provide that for our students. We also met with I met with a lot of our healthcare providers to see what they needed in order for our students to be able to be successful and finish their program here with us at the College of Health Careers. We had a commitment for the healthcare workforce, and so they were needing all our nursing assistants, they were needing our MAs, caregivers, they needed all these people in their community. Our enrollment decreased so much during the pandemic, as others have encountered throughout the nation and our community. We needed to quickly mitigate the spread of the virus, but because of the scarcity of the PPE, we had to make sure that the enrollment caps were decreased. Normally, we have approximately 10 to about 20 students per session, and I needed to decrease that to 6, 5, in order for social distancing to be enough within the college and our learning environment. It was crucial for us to protect our students and our staff. And so what we did is we rearranged all the classrooms. We made sure that, students had enough space between them. We made sure that staff had the necessary tools in order for them to continue to provide that education. As a result of the decreasing enrollment caps, of course, we faced a lot of the financial challenges that many of my colleagues also faced. But we were lucky, and we are lucky, to have fantastic partnerships with the workforce agencies in our county, that they provided the funding for students. Many students also work during the evening or nights, depending on when they take our courses. And so they also saw the fear and didn't want to work in the healthcare field, but they wanted to complete the program. And so the workforce agencies came in and they provided the funding for them in order for them to finish their education. I am optimistic as an education leader. I am optimistic for the future in education. Those of us that are in education, we look back, we can, all look back in this COVID pandemic and see that it's a time of reflection on new opportunities, a positive change that needs to occur in education. In my opinion, this pandemic united many to help design a support, not only for students, but for staff in our colleges. We used each other as examples. We held each other's hand to find out what worked for them, what didn't work for us, in order for us to be able to deliver that instruction to our students successfully. There are many challenges that I predict will be coming up soon. As one of my colleagues, Yara, mentioned that a lot of our students didn't have the computers, didn't have the internet. We live in a rural community, and so a lot of our students don't have that capability. And so what we needed to do is we needed to step up our game, and we needed to make sure that we provided that necessary skills and those tools that the students needed for them to be successful. As far as the innovative and bringing up the technological world, we have a staff that is not used to using those technologies tools. And so they had to learn as well. We all had to learn together to face this and think positive and move forward. As a governing board member of the Somerton School District, we also have teachers that have been in the field for 30+ years that, to them, this technology was something new that they had to learn. And so it was very difficult for them to continue, and it was very difficult and frustrating, and they shed many tears, and they just needed that affirmation that this was going to get better. And together we were able to be successful. Students' learning never stopped, and neither did our college. It never stopped, and it continues to be strong. And I think that all of us together, we need to call for action in education, and to face these true challenges in education. As stakeholders, we need to come together and brainstorm for different methods, because this is not going to go away. But I know that through the mitigation of the virus, through the vaccine and wearing the masks and so forth, I think that we're going to be able to continue, and we're going to be able to provide that great education that this nation and both sides of the border is doing now. We're doing our best, and I think that's all we can do. And I know my time is short because I know we need to move on. So that's why I kind of did a quick overview. But if you have any questions for me, I would be glad to answer.
Okay. Thank you so much, Lorena. And thank you for yielding a little bit of time. I truly appreciate it, because we got a bit off.
I was keeping track of the time. I even had a timer. I was like, oh my gosh, I better wrap it up, because I can keep going. I have so much to say on education.
Yes. But it gives us an opportunity to field some questions. If any of you have particular questions that you would like addressed, please put them in the chat, and our panelists will respond. One of the things that I was wondering as I was listening to the presentations was, given there's a lot of similarity in circumstances in different environments in Mexico and the US with respect to the problems and impediments of COVID, posed by COVID. What can we do better maybe to work across political jurisdictions to work more collaboratively and together? Any of you have thoughts on that?
So Dr. Sabas, I will tell you that from Imperial Valley's perspective, I was quite pleased that we were really on track to join our fellow universities around us on the Arizona side and also on the Mexicali, San Luis sides. Our board of trustees had just approved the signing of the MOU for the Front Ed initiative. And we even had a signing ceremony scheduled to kind of formalize that relationship, and then COVID hit and everything kind of went sideways. I'm hoping that once we're able to come back, that initiative returns, because I think it's incredibly important. Just because we share a physical structure, that doesn't mean that we don't share other things in common: our culture, our food, our education, our citizens. We all have a lot of things in common. So I look forward to that day. We have I have an incredible relationship with Secati in Mexicali, and some of the things that we've been able to work with them. And I look forward to the day that I can go back and see people in person and be able to continue that collaboration, because it's extremely important. I will tell you also, from the kind of putting my former mayor hat on, is that the economic impact of COVID in our communities, especially the city of El Centro, has been tremendous, because we heavily rely on the Mexican consumer to come across the border to shop in our malls. Our malls, about 70% of the customers that come from across the border, and our border has been closed for most residents for over a year now. I understand that there's some hope that closure will be lifted in May, hopefully. But the economic impact in terms of our sales tax revenue by not having the Mexican consumer come across the border has been incredibly large.
Yes, and I certainly look forward to reconvening the binational meetings that we had with educational institutions and others through the forefront of EV.
Yes, Dr. Sabbath, we have a couple of questions for our panelists. The first one is from Alfredo Padilla Lopez that says, within the institutions that are reflected here by the panelists, is there some way to identify how anxiety and depression are affecting people being able to learn?
Good question. Panelists?
Dr. Linda, did you say how to identify?
Yes, the question is, dentro de las instituciones tienen algún modo de identificar qué tanto los trastornos de ansiedad y depresión afecta o afectará el desempeño y rendimiento académico.
Well, if I may, in my college here, and also as part of the governing board, what we noticed was that, the students' participation, their grades, logging on, not having a response, that kind of triggered a worrisome for teachers and administrators to check up on the students. We are a small community, so it was easy for us to send out a teacher or an administrator just to check up on the student. Here with us, we were in constant contact with the student to make sure that, it was very difficult to ease their worry or their fear, but we always iterated to them that we did all these changes in order to protect their safety.
And this is Tom Tyree. I would add to that first of all, I'd say that's a very important question, but it's very difficult to quantify what the effect has been on our students emotionally. But as I said earlier, that we just anecdotally, in talking to a number of different people, they explained the effect that it had on their children because of the lack of social interaction that they were experiencing. And that they normally would receive at their schools. One bit of data, though, that I think really does point out an issue or a concern, is that, you know, our schools are one of the best reporters or monitors when it comes to students being abused in their homes. And I'm not sure why, but for some reason, at least in Yuma County, the month of April is always the month that we see a spike or the highest number of reports from schools and, you know, in the county as a whole related to abuse. And what we know is that the data still needs to come out from this last month, April, but we know from the previous month of April that there were no reports of any child abuse in Yuma County at all. And I don't believe that's because there wasn't any. In fact, I have every reason to believe that there probably was more, but we had no way of reporting that because students weren't in school. And so we didn't have school officials monitoring what was taking place, as Mrs. Deas was just describing they were trying to do in Somerton. So we are really concerned that a lot of issues were taking place in the home regarding our students that we didn't know about. And we think once again that the schools being closed down led to a higher incidence of depression. We know that there have been some number of student suicides that took place. And we know that probably that drug abuse increased as well.
Thank you, Superintendent Tyree and Lorena Cendejas. We have one more question. This is from Ingeniero Ruben Alfredo Parada, which says that we are living with our pupils who are not returning to class, to school on both sides of the border. What have been the actions to be able to recuperate these particular students, to contact them and bring them back to school?
So I will tell you, so obviously community college is for adults, and so no one is mandated to attend classes. They do so by their own desires and choosing. But we did, again, I noted in my presentation that we had a very large drop in student population. So we formed a team, we called it the Hour of Power, right, in which we all dedicated an hour of our time to personally call all the students that had dropped out of school and find out what we could do, what were the circumstances around them dropping out, explain to them all the support services that are available to students as a way to not just identify why, but also try to encourage them to come back. Because there's two very important reasons why we want our students back. One is the right thing to do, right? We cannot let all the human power go to waste, and we need to make sure that we provide our services back to our students. But also from a very practical and very administrative side of things, we cannot afford to lose all those students and the revenue and the apportionment that those students bring with them through the chancellor's office. We cannot sustain a 27% drop in enrollment apportionment. We can't, right? So it's both is the right thing to do, and also from the administrative side of things, we have to find a mechanism to get them here. So we're doing a lot of marketing, a lot of social media information, and again, very personal one-on-one communication with them and try to help them come back to school.
Very, very quickly, in Arizona, as I noted, we've seen a real drop in the number of students enrolled, at least in our regular public schools. I participated in a meeting yesterday that included a person from the Arizona Department of Education. One of the things that the Department of Education is trying to do is to create a kind of a messaging program to get word back out to all Arizona families and students about the need to come back to our public schools. And I will tell you that individually, our school districts all across the state are also putting together campaigns where they're going out into their neighborhoods and their communities to try to re-enroll students as well.
Thank you, Superintendent Tyree. And I apologize, we cannot answer the last question as we are coming to the end of our time. I am going to read a summary of what our different distinguished panelists have talked about. COVID-19 has affected the U.S.-Mexico border mega region of Sonora, Baja California, California, and Arizona in many ways. Yuma County adjusted to the pandemic in various ways in the education sector. COVID-19 hit the Yuma County area very hard and peaked at a much stronger level than originally anticipated. Due to contradictory science shared by experts at the beginning of the pandemic, residents were confused. Different advisories or guidance were similarly confusing. The determining decisions on school pandemic directions had to be made by education administrators and were received at times as contentious by the public. The response of education leaders in Yuma County was to collaborate to best provide an environment that was safe and could provide sound instruction for students, and was spearheaded by the Yuma County Superintendent of Schools. The director of the Yuma County Health Department, Diana Gomez, was an active and consistent participant in these collaborative education system meetings to keep accurate information available to the school systems. One of the first education responses was to space people 6 feet apart as per CDC guidelines. With this social distancing, Yuma County schools realized that all of the students could not be present in classrooms and other venues at the same time. Therefore, a hybrid model of instruction was implemented with some students present and others learning at a distance. At certain times, all students were instructed at a distance due to the pandemic numbers. School also implemented deep cleaning to ensure safe working spaces. Overall, the main direction was to provide instruction to students. Gradually, the high level of pandemic numbers began to diminish, and later in 2021, the governor of the state declared that school systems should be able to return physically to school, and the teachers and staff had been vaccinated. There has been a social impact on students with depression and substance abuse as some of the repercussions. Funding from the state has also been affected. The public school system has lost around 55,000 students. The lasting impact on public instruction is yet to be seen. Baja California realized that the pandemic has been one of the major threats to global education. It was like having everyone on the same airplane while deciding how to work on the pandemic. COVID-19 has disrupted the learning of millions of students and required adjusting traditional methods of teaching. We all had to board the same plane with the pandemic. The Secretary of Education in Baja California instituted protocols to be able to deliver instruction at an appropriate distance. There was a massive campaign within the state to disseminate information with various ways for people to obtain necessary data. There was also learning offered free of charge through various ways, including via free television channels and online classes taught by experts. Different platforms were used to provide learning with different certifications possible. Baja California was the first state in Mexico to work with Google in education. All of the education personnel have now been vaccinated, and it is anticipated that students will be able to return to school on June 15th. The state is going through a continuing transition on models for instruction and continues to work together in its commitment to community education. The Imperial Valley region of California was the hotspot of the nation with high numbers of illness and death. Communication was key, and the area focused on providing necessary information in both English and Spanish. On March 13th, 2020, the governor of California closed down the state, which required students and teachers to transition immediately to distant learning. Distant learning varied in many ways, including the utilization of platforms like Canvas and Zoom. Some programs, such as nursing, were required to be taught in person. Students were allowed to do excused withdrawals given the circumstances under an extended period of time without an impact to financial aid status. Imperial Valley College created a support structure online to help students that included online faculty mentors and childcare on campus. Hotspots were provided to students so that they could access the internet, although internet access was inconsistent in certain areas of Imperial Valley. There was a support network for mental health as well as providing food to students. Even with these support services, a significant percentage of students dropped out, especially first-time students. Many of the students had not had any experience learning online, which created challenges to student persistence. Later this spring of 2021, more hands-on learning experiences have been able to resume. Imperial Valley College can encourage students to be vaccinated, cannot require them to obtain the vaccine as of this date. Administration has been present and available to reach out to the community and assist with information. However, there are still students and families who are not willing to return to in-person learning. The impacts of the pandemic will continue to impact our population, and COVID-19 has totally changed our lives. Migrant education in Baja California serves the migrant students between the United States and Mexico. This program serves as a link for students who may not be familiar with the school system and need to know about the school system in another country. It also provides support on changing to another language and culture and the work environment and careers in Mexico. The program assesses what the student knows and recommends what is needed as a bridge from one country to another. There are significant numbers of students in Baja California who were born in the United States. Due to the migratory flow of students, it is important that Mexico and the United States collaborate on curricula. Migrant students are very vulnerable and can be invisible within the school system. Many of them struggle with language. Teacher exchanges can help teachers from both sides of the border understand what students learn. Bilingual education on both sides of the border can help students. It is important that students be able to lead quality lives and enter the workforce with an opportunity for success. With this difficult situation, the pandemic arrived. Exams were suspended since students needed to be present to take them. There is a memorandum of understanding and process between Baja California and California regarding online instruction. A collaborative committee has been formed to discuss ensuring access to public education for undocumented and other transnational students during the pandemic. One of the biggest challenges during the pandemic was providing instruction to students. The state had to use a variety of strategies to reach migrant students. In summary, the COVID-19 shook education to its core. Additionally, the healthcare field was hit with an increased demand for healthcare workers. The College for Health Careers at Regional Center for Border Health worked with the state boards on ways to provide learning in a safe environment. Given that much learning had to take place in person, there was a need to acquire sufficient personal protective equipment to students and instructors, which was difficult. Class sizes were decreased to 5 to 6 students per session and adjusted for necessary social distancing. The pandemic has united many to provide support and ideas of what worked for students during this difficult time. In particular, faculty, students, and staff faced challenges in learning about the tools necessary for learning during COVID-19. As stakeholders, we need to come together to help our communities learn.
Thank you for that excellent summary, Dr. Elliott Nelson. Truly appreciated. And that will be reflected in the recording of the session. At this time, I'd like to thank all of our panelists. You were just excellent. And thank our attendees for being here today. And hope that we continue to get together like this again in the future, perhaps in person rather than virtually. But nonetheless, I want to encourage you to return to the original link that you accessed the conference through this morning so that we can hear some concluding remarks, and particularly remarks by Russell Bennett, who's the former Vice President of the Latino Health Solutions of United Healthcare. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.